is dependent to the condition of patient and also the condition of the transplanted organ. Is it very dangerous? Even if patient forget not take only one day, on one time the medication, the organ may be rejected. So the transplant patients should receive their medication on time. They can change the medications as the order of the doctor. The patient should be aware every time that don't use any drug without the permission of his doctor. Doctor should be prescribed. No.
No, I think it's, any change in the immunosuppression is a very serious thing. And it has to be done carefully. When you change from one drug to the other, you can induce a rejection, which can be very serious. So any change, again, in the medication, even though they might be from the same family, but you never know how the body will react to it. So it's very important to check and to have the patient under very close observation, to check if there are any signs of rejection, to detect it early and to treat it early. Because the price of any defect would be the loss of a very precious organ. Yeah?
And what's your opinion about it?
I've heard about these medicines, but I must say, I am very careful personally in moving from the main pharmaceutical companies to generic companies and to generic medications. I'm very careful because, again, like I told you, the risk is the loss of the organ. So I don't want to play around with this. So I'd rather pay more money and have safe drugs. Of course, if you end up having good studies that show that these generic medications and drugs produced in other companies are as effective, then we will endorse them, but only after proper studies. The most serious side effect is rejection. And you will see this in his functions, liver functions. They will start to rise. And if you don't control it very quickly, you will end up going in a state of acute rejection or even sometimes chronic rejection. And acute rejection or chronic rejection can have very serious effects. First, to treat it, you have to treat this rejection that you have induced. You have to give very big doses of steroids. Steroids are drugs that can induce infection. So you start to push yourself into another problem, which is infection, and then rejection, which is losing the graft. So again, that's why I'm saying be very careful, use the medications that you already know, and only change to other medications if there is a good reason for it. First, sometimes you use a drug and then you find that it affects kidney functions. It's bad for the kidney. Okay, then I'm going to change it. If I'm going to change it into something else, it has to be, like I've said, under strict control. And then when you change from one drug that we know to another drug that is less known, then it's only after proper studies. No, it gives to all patients who undergo transplantation in public hospitals. They are given the medications for free, and they're all, you can choose from a wide variety of drugs according to each patient, what medications does he need, and if he's sensitive to one drug, then maybe you can change to another. So we have a choice, but they're all the original drugs. None of them are generic. Of course, it's very individualized. It's very individualized, and it's based on a lot of things. Like I've given you an example. There's one drug that is excellent, but it affects the kidneys in some patients. So we stop it and we give another drug, and so on. So each patient has his own, there is a general rule, but then within this general rule, you change the medications according to the patient's response?
Well, probably not. I mean, it depends on the patient's underlying disease. It depends on the patient's age. It depends on the quality of the organ a patient is going to get. That is fairly obvious. If the patient doesn't receive enough anti-rejection medication, the organ is going to be rejected. You know, the US has a very complicated healthcare system, and in the US, usually there is access to immunosuppressants, but different insurance plans provide support for different medications. So it is very complex.
Takrorlaymiz degan misol bitta bor, takrorlaymiz. Bitta modda, ikkinchi modda bu siklosporin. Umr bo'yicha uni ichishadi. Misol targoviy nomi har xil bo'lishi mumkin. Tushunyapsizmi? Ichida degan modda bitta bo'ladi. O'shaning uchun uni bemalol misol pangraf ichsangiz bo'ladi, prograf ichsangiz bo'ladi. Butun umr bo'yicha uni almashtirsangiz bo'ladi, buni ishlamasi.
Hozir turkiyalik delegat bilan gaplashganimda aytyaptiki, men misol uchun Turkiyada turib bitta dorini buyurganimda, uni ichidagi modda bir xil bo'lsa ham, O'zbekistonda boshqa dori beriladigan bo'lsa, buning uchun men javob bera olmayman. Juda qiyin bo'ladi buni nazorat qilish. Bitta dorini o'zgartirish uchun ma'lum vaqt protsess kerak bo'ladi.
Mana takrorlaymiz degan moddani, masalaga to'g'ri takrorlaymiz ichida bo'lsa, bu ketaveradi. Lekin konsentratsiyasiga qarab turish kerak. Uni hamma joyda qilinadigan narsa. Prosta bir xil davlatlar bor, ular bitta dorini oladi-da, o'shani ishlataveradi. Bizda O'zbekistonda tender bo'ladi, dorini nomi o'zgarishi mumkin. Ichidagi modda asosi. Sertifikat bo'lsa, sifati bo'lsa, qanaqa davlatga bormasangiz. GMP sertifikati bor. Qanaqa dorini ishlatmasangiz. Penicillinmi, o'sha immunosupressormi, 2017-yil, 2016-yil biz prograf ishlatganmiz. Originalniy preparat, prograf. Uni Yevropada chiqariladi. Keyin pangrafga o'tganmiz. Hech kim hech narsa demagan. Bu yerda kimdir nimadir qanaqadir ish olib bordi shekilli. Mana shu hozirgi o'zgartirgan doriga. Bu meni fikrim. Bemalol ishlaydi bo'ladi. Faqat doktorning nazorati.